Hello, how are you?
Good, thanks. How you doing?
Not bad, not bad. Thanks for taking your time again.
Oh, of course.
Um, how's your day?
Good. It's a little hectic. It's just design stuff. I'm working on a 30-year anniversary box set for Alice in Chains Dirt. I've been working on it for a while, well over a year, and they launched the pre-order today. Um, but I just received the first print sample, and it's not printed. It's just the paper materials and all that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
and it's so inaccurate.
All right, okay.
So now I have to just make a laundry list of all the problems that I mean, people are buying it right now, and so I just saw the sample for the first time like an hour ago as people are buying it, and it's not even close. So I'm having to put out a bunch of fires with that, but otherwise, I'm fine.
When is it out?
It's supposed to ship at the end of October. I'm a little doubtful about that, but that's what they're sticking to it. So we'll see.
What's the weather like right now? In the UK is very hot,
I've
like crazy
yeah, I've
hot.
heard. Yeah, I've heard there was some new records set over there recently. It's actually amazing here. It's 72 degrees and sunny and 0% humidity. This is the place to be during the summer, the
Okay.
Northwest. It's obviously very dreary a lot of the rest of the year, but this time of year, it doesn't get any better.
When it gets this hot, I find it so hard to focus and to do any work.
Yeah, I luckily we don't get that hot. I mean, we did get last year. We got 112 here in Seattle, which was so bizarre. It was the hottest on record ever. Um, but a lot of us aren't really prepared for that because we, older builds don't have air conditioning at all. We don't have air conditioning. My office doesn't have air conditioning, so it's a lot different than the rest of the United States, which is everywhere has air conditioning because they're used to getting really hot or really humid. Out here, very few people do unless it's a newer house or something like that. So yeah, I can't really be in this room if it gets over like 95, I can't really work. You know, I have to go take my laptop and go find some place that has AC or something. So
Yeah.
it's not
Uh,
ideal.
Ryan, what did you think of the questions for Cairo?
I thought they were probably some of the better questions that I've ever answered with regards to those topics.
Do
I'm
you think
I'm
they were
used to
too,
getting.
do you think they were too provocative?
No, I think they were perfectly provocative.
All right. All right.
I think people tend to sort of softball that stuff or ask really stock questions that have been answered a million times. And a lot of those type of like faith um, based interviews to me are just old. It gets very tiresome because it's always the same stuff. And your questions were totally new, totally interesting, very um, researched, and yeah, they were just well thought out, and allowed me to sort of put a lot of thought into the answers, which again, usually I'm just giving stock answers to stock questions. But yeah, hopefully the answers I gave you back, um, hopefully those were good for you.
Oh, they were awesome. They were awesome. I've been thinking about those kind of topics for a while, and for me, it's always been like a curiosity, like
Yeah,
what other people think about these sort of things. Like, is it just me that have these preoccupations? It's
probably
more.
not. Yeah, I think it's probably a lot of people, and I mean, some people will just sort of just ignore it, like
Mhm.
or consider bands like ours like not like we don't count, so they don't give us any time. But I think a lot of people are interested in sort of like the paradox and the merging of the clashing of cultures when it comes to like heavy metal. A lot of people assume that there's an innate, like we talked about, like there's an innate
Mhm.
negativity or evil to it. And I think it'll be really thought provoking for a lot of people.
The one thing that I found a bit unexpected, and it's okay, is that a lot of the bigger bands. Well, to begin with, there's not many bands in general,
No,
like 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 very few.
very
Uh,
few.
and also, so if we, let's say, do an exercise of elimination, just for lack of better words, like those that are interested, those that are active, those
Hmm.
that have their time, those that even care about these kind of topics, it just narrows it down to just a few bands. And
Yeah.
also the bigger bands, maybe it's not, let's say, good publicity. I mean, this is my own paranoia
Mm.
on why they didn't even answer. Because there are some key bands that I wanted to include. Obviously, Demon Hunter is one of them. But they didn't even reply. Um, so I don't know. It's gonna
Yeah.
take longer than expected, but it's fine. It's fine. I'm not in a rush.
Yeah. Yeah. I think another narrowing that funnel even more, there are so many bands that started with that sort of predisposition that they were a faith-based band, they were a Christian band, and then somewhere along that road they ceased to be that.
Hmm.
Underoath is one of those bands that I don't think any of them consider themselves Christians anymore. As
Okay.
Lay Dying was one of those bands. I don't think any. I mean, I don't want to speak for these guys,
Sure,
but
sure, sure.
it's just, I mean, I've heard them speak for themselves in a public fashion on this stuff, so I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. As Lay Dying, I don't think any of those guys are believers anymore. August Burns Red, I think maybe half of them.
Okay.
Whereas the I know that the singer um, is, and so that would probably be, or at least to my knowledge, still is. But so many of these guys have sort of uh, turned a corner over the last decade or so, and they're not really where they were when they were at their most popular
Hmm.
um, in playing music. So it's hard to say these days if a band hasn't put out a record,
Hmm.
hasn't put out a record for 4 or 5 years. I don't even know if it's safe to assume that the guys from that band are even still believers, because it
Yes.
happens so frequently that these guys just sort of grow out of it almost.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's slim. It's very slim.
I've noticed that there are a lot of Christian hardcore bands,
That
uh,
is, yeah, that
and
is more likely for
and
sure.
soft rock as well,
Yes.
which is good, Um, but yeah, it's completely different from what I'm used to. But the people that have replied so far, I mean, so far I've had maybe 40 back,
Okay.
and they're really, really good. Like
Good.
really, like really good. Like some guys even took wrote like 10 pages.
Oh, excellent. Did Bruce Fitzhugh ever get back to you from Living Sacrifice?
I haven't contacted
Okay.
those contacts that you gave me. Not yet, not yet. I have
So
a
Bruce he would be really good, and he's a bit of a godfather because
okay.
they were playing thrash in the 80s, in the late 80s, and they sort of paved the way for a lot of us. The only other one that I forgot I didn't give you,
Hmm.
um, which would be another godfather, even earlier than Living Sacrifice, would be um, Mark Solomon from the Crucified. I don't know if you've spoken to him.
No, but I have a list, which
Okay.
if that's okay, I will send it to you to help me out
Yeah.
with some of the contacts, if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. Mark Solomon would be a great one. And the Crucified again was an 80s thrash. They sort of were doing almost Anthrax
Hmm.
sounding like punk thrash stuff. But yeah, those were early, definitely early on. I don't have anyone from Tourniquet's um, contact, but they were even earlier. And then Mortification was also earlier
Hmm.
than Living
Yeah.
Sacrifice. And um, I could get that one, I know for sure. but I
I
don't
got
have
in
it
t-
handy.
I got in touch with Tourniquet, and they replied. They haven't said yes or no, so I don't know.
Okay.
Mortification,
Okay.
I sent them an email, but I haven't had a reply. One of the guy from Mortification made a really, really good black metal record. Like
Okay. Yeah.
really, really good. So it would be great to talk to him. But he hasn't
Yeah. That was
replied.
I remember that. It wasn't Steve. It wasn't the singer, but it was another guy from the band. Steve Rowe is the singer, um, and he's the only original member, as far as I know.
Okay.
Um, but he would be great because he was there at the very beginning of all this. Um, did you speak to anyone in Crimson Moonlight?
No.
Okay, they are a Norwegian black metal Christian band. One of the very few, and one of the only decent.
The thing which I find a bit unusual for me, maybe because of my background, is that none of the bands that maybe like 2% are Catholic. Like
Mm-hmm.
the rest,
That's pretty rare. Yeah.
like 2% is Catholic, maybe 2% is or Eastern Orthodox. The rest is
Yeah.
like all the different American sort of
American Christianity. Yeah.
Christian.
Yeah. Did you
Uh,
speak to Extol at all, Peter, or anyone from
I
Extol?
did an interview with them a long time ago, which we talked about these sort of things, which I still would like to include it. But I emailed them again and they haven't replied.
Okay.
I don't think they're active.
They're not. Peter has a newer band called, I don't know how to pronounce it, but Rada. Um, it's a softer thing. HRADA. I think it's just a 2-person thing, and it's softer. So yeah, I know Extol's definitely not active anymore. But they were definitely one of the more revered bands by the general metal world. I know that guys in Opeth and bands like that, for instance, really
Yeah.
loved Extol despite their faith stuff. So
I have a few questions in regards to the new album,
yeah.
and also I don't know if you've seen. I stopped doing the magazine because the distributor went bankrupt,
Oh no.
which during the COVID thing. So, but it's okay. I mean, I took a big hit for that. So now
I
I'm trying
bet.
to, yeah, really bad. And now I'm trying to do another one, a new magazine. But it's not gonna be it's gonna be like a little book more than a
Okay.
magazine.
Okay.
So no, because I love magazines, but the thing with magazines, I'm worried that people don't keep them. I mean, some people do, some people don't. So it feels like something that you buy, you read, and then maybe you don't you discard. So
Yeah.
I don't like that. So I thought to do this magazine and give it away for free to all my subscribers. I have about 23,000 subscribers,
Wow. That's great.
and then there would be a printed version. So if people want to buy it, so I hope to sort of get the magazine out, and then like to as many people as possible,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then if people prefer to buy in print, then maybe I'll do 200 copies. I don't know. Let's see
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. That I'm dealing with all those sorts of issues right now. Obviously, I think anyone who's dealing with any sort of manufacturer, it's
Mhm.
just it's an uphill battle right now. I mean, everything's taking longer. There's shortages of this and that, and
Yes.
yeah, it's rough.
But anyway, like what can we do? We just have to keep on pushing.
Right. Agreed.
Right. Um, the magazine will also have Montaigne.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I was hoping that you would get like both,
It's like sinners and and
sinners and saints together.
yeah,
Yeah.
sinners insane sort of scenario. But it's fine. I mean, if it doesn't bother you.
I like that. I would prefer that because I think it's, we too often get accused of sort of living in our own bubbles and being fully exclusive to the rest of the world. And it's true for some, it's true for a lot, but it's not true of all of us. And I think that's important to to uncover, is that there are plenty of us that believe, that have no problem being in the presence of a Watain or whoever, or even going to see them or whatever it is. That's never bothered me at all. And I know it's there are a lot of people like me that are like that. My guitar player Jeremiah, when he was doing sound for another band at Soundwave in Australia, he hung out with the Watain guys the whole time, drinking with them and stuff. And like at the end of the thing, because he wasn't there on our behalf, he was there doing sound. And at the end of the week, they were like talking, and he was mentioned that he was in Demon Hunter, and their minds were just blown. They just couldn't believe that he was hanging out with them. So,
we had a phone. It wasn't an email interview. We had a chat over the phone, and it was very nice. I mean, why shouldn't it be? But I think, like very. We talked about this sort of things briefly. I used to ask quite often, but now I stopped because they feel very uncomfortable. So we talked about these sort of things a little bit, but it seemed very relaxed, very. But is a Swede. Usually people from that part of the world, they're usually very well educated and very well good manners, and all that.
Yeah, totally. They don't really get agitated. I mean, it seems like they don't publicly or they don't get agitated about things out of context. Like
Yes.
if they're willing to speak about things and just speak, and not not get carried away.
But the thing is, one thing I noticed, and this is just one thing in general, I don't know if you've noticed the same, but with a lot of the bands that do this kind of art, let's say, and they're not, because they're atheists, they don't, for them is just anything goes. So it doesn't matter. It's not like they see the world through that lens. So anything goes, they will sure, no problem. I mean, if they don't believe in that kind of reality, so it doesn't matter, which is fair enough.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's if that's truly how you believe, it wouldn't make sense to do it any other way. If you had some sort of like guiding principles, it would almost be counter to your worldview, because there's no need for them. It would almost hint at some sort of hidden faith that you actually do have.
I mean, a lot of the values, maybe that they don't know that they have, a lot of the values that they live by are Christian values, whether they're aware of them or not.
That's absolutely true. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so talking about your new record, so did you guys like record the record during lockdown, or was it already past that?
In a sense, we did. Yeah, we were demoing definitely through 2020, and then we started recording in earnest in the summer of 2021. So we weren't fully locked down anymore, but it was still, things were still a little bit shaky. Like here in Seattle, everyone was still wearing masks, and but we did most of the recording down in Nashville, Tennessee, and down there it was a lot more open. But yeah, the COVID did give us, I wouldn't say like a lot more freedom to have the time to do that. This is, for me, working for myself and sort of getting to dictate my own schedule. I'm used to sort of coring out the amount of time that I'm going to need to do something, and sort of letting my work sort of function around that. And truth be told, I was actually very busy with design work through COVID. So it wasn't that it slowed down on that side of things for me in order to give me more time for the music, but like I have for 20 years, I just juggled them simultaneously, and we do it these days. We do it in chunks, so we're not necessarily getting together for 6 weeks and knocking out a whole record. It's usually, you know, let's do 2 weeks of guitars. Let's do a couple weeks of vocals, with breaks in between them. You know, there's usually maybe like a month or more between each like session or each instrument, so to speak. We did all the singing vocals in Nashville, and then I think a couple months later we did all the screaming vocals up here in my studio. So it's more fragmented, which allows me to be more agile, design in between and things like that.
I'm terrible at giving reviews or comments about music or records. Like that's why I never do reviews. But it seems very angry, the album. Like, I mean, at least that's my impression.
Sure, yeah. You
Am I
know,
wrong?
no, it's not wrong. It definitely runs the gamut. Most of the songs that we've released at this point are the slightly more aggressive ones on the album. They're definitely more like down tempo songs that are a little more melancholy that we haven't released. Most of that is to do with, you know, when we're figuring out which songs to give people first. Usually the ones that are more aggressive are the ones that are will resonate with people more immediately, and then the slower, more ballad-esque songs are the ones that, you know, the more hardcore fan is going to gravitate towards, or um, exists better within the context of the full record. So yeah, you're definitely hearing the more aggressive stuff first. But being that it's sort of a concept record that has to do a lot with um, my thoughts on the internet and social media, and sort of the drawbacks of those things, and the negative effects of those things, which I think are plentiful. Um, that that lens that I view all of that stuff with is a very angry lens. So it would make sense that that's how it comes across, because most of the songs have to do in some way with my feelings on the internet or social media, or how it's affecting people these days. So and it's what I have to say about those things is mostly very negative.
Okay, is that why you call the album Exile? Like exile from that kind of trap? I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, it's a disconnecting, like a literal disconnecting technologically. It's also a spiritual disconnecting from the direction that the world is sort of taking us in, a world where the self is sort of paramount above all else, and is we're being, you know, young people are sort of being taught to like put themselves on a platform, on a pedestal, and because of that, they're being disappointed left, right, and center, and feeling a lot worse about themselves, because if yourself is at sort of the center of your universe, you're going to take a lot of heat just because of the human experience. You're going to find a lot of things that make the self feel bad, feel negative. And social media does a great job of doing that, and so that's the biggest pitfall, is that when you hold yourself in that high regard, and the world ends up tearing you down, that's and you have nothing else to exalt, you have nothing else to cling to, but yourself, then a whole bevy of things can go wrong, and start to collapse.
That's you just when you said this, and two things came to mind. Obviously, Crowley and
Mm-hmm.
Pride, which is the first of the seven capital sins.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, exactly. You know, like I said, like I mentioned in the interview questions, the self is sort of the thing that I feel like I'm battling the most. It's not necessarily, Satanism as a specific entity. It's not necessarily like different world religions. It's not necessarily, um, it's not always, differing viewpoints, but it usually comes back to the self, and that can be applicable in so many different ways because uh, it's something that everyone deals with on some level. I deal with it. It's a very innately Christian thing to look inwardly and ask yourself, like, am I flawed? Am I justifiable? Am I worth anything? What are we here for? Blah blah blah. Is there a purpose to life? All that kind of stuff. And then you all you have to do is look around to see what the world is telling us about the self and how important it is to love the self or put the self, like above all else. And we're sort of seeing how that plays out right now, despite this sort of flood of self-love that we're being um, taught. It seems like mental health is just collapsing into disrepair like we've never seen before. People who have very few things to complain about, people who live in first world countries, people who grow up wealthy, people who have never had to worry about surviving a day in their life are mentally distraught constantly and in vast numbers today. And I think most of that has to do with how we've positioned the self in our culture.
Yes, but for me, at least the way I've been brought up, when I think about the self, it's more like the things you just said. Like how to improve myself. Like how to how my relationship with others, with the world. But now, like for the modern world, the relationship to the self is like, how can others worship me? What kind of
Mhm.
God can I be? Or I've already reached the spiritual nirvana, and I'm absolutely perfect. And how I can get people to, so is a completely different approach on how we see the self. I mean, for me, it's always a question of how can I be the best dad or the best friend, things that I can do to make things better for my life and for others. Whereas, you know what I'm
Yeah, I
getting
mean, absolutely. I mean, it's no wonder that in expressing those things, you're innately talking about your relationships with others.
Yes,
Like
yes.
your relationship to your kids, your family,
Hmm.
your friends. That is already You're already thinking outside yourself and thinking that those are the aspects of the self that need to be um, worked on or need to
Hmm.
improve. Um, so I would say those are just as um, outward looking as they are inward looking. And yeah, there are absolutely aspects of the self that need to be um, catered to. There needs to be some sort of baseline of just ordinary self care, self understanding, self value, self worth. That all needs to exist for sure. I think the problem is that there's a fine line between just a base level of functioning on a base level of self value, self worth, and then when that projects itself into um, a higher level of overvaluing yourself, um, and caring mostly about the way that you're viewed and the way that people see you and all those types of things. Again, really social media playing into a lot of those things
Yeah.
today. That's where it becomes really dicey, and that's what we're seeing mostly today.
Yes.
Even when people are almost pretending to work on themselves, it's almost this thinly veiled falsehood. And we see what, if someone posts a picture of themselves in their car and it says, just working on myself today or something, it's like, well, then just work on yourself. Don't post a picture. Don't like, this is not about trying to gain some sort of,
Likes.
likes or comments or get people to, oh, what's going on? That's not what working on yourself is. But that's how it looks today. People are masquerading, trying to make it seem like they're working on themselves for those really good core things. But in the process, they're actually just fishing for, comments, compliments, likes, attention. People like attention these days. That's sort of one of the biggest factors at play, is that people are starved for attention because they're ultimately starved for identity, which is not readily available these days. If you don't feel like there's purpose to life, if you don't feel like there's some existential meaning to life, it's hard to find identity. And so now everyone's grasping at straws for identity and just trying to get attention in very odd ways.
It's like watching a very strange cartoon. But the
Yeah,
sad thing is that it's not a cartoon; it's real people, real life.
absolutely, absolutely.
And you have a comic book out as well with the album. What's the
Yeah.
story? What is the story in the comic book?
So it's sort of taking on that idea of tech becoming an increasingly more powerful and more devious tool. It's basically like a near future, heightened reality, dramatized version of what we're seeing today, and sort of where the trajectory of where technology is taking us. Obviously, it's in a very we're cranking up the negative aspects of it and the sort of big brother aspects of it. And it's a story of a girl who's basically left on her own to travel and deliver some precious things that will allow her sort of her family's legacy to live on. And she's sort of left to her own devices to figure out how to do that, and meets some people along the way that will help her do that. And she doesn't really know what it is that she's doing, but she knows that it's important. And there's a lot of trials for her along the way. And it's a little bit Wizard of Oz. It's a little bit Dune. It's very post-apocalyptic. It has lots of little hidden Easter eggs, if you will, that kind of point back to the band, but it also very much lives on its own. If you were to be in a comic shop and pick it up, you wouldn't really think that this was a piece of like band merchandise at all. It was important to me that this would live on its own as a story, that even people who have no idea that it's relating to a band or an album at all would get a lot out of it and wouldn't really think anything twice about it.
And did you work with the artist to sort of put it together?
Yeah, I didn't plan on writing it myself at the beginning. I assumed that I would sort of formulate some sort of concept and some sort of structure and characters and like a story Bible of sorts, and then hand that off to someone and see what they came back with. And the more that I sort of formed this story Bible, this world, these characters, the backstory, and in sort of brainstorming with some friends, the more I realized that I wasn't going to let go of it. I was going to have, I'm a control freak at heart. And so once I started dipping my toe in it, I realized not only was I not going to be satisfied if someone else did it, but I was having a lot of fun doing it too. And so I wrote the first version which rounded out at about 100 pages. So the first concept was to do a graphic novel, like 100 and so page graphic novel. And as we started talking with artists and lining up all of those sorts of things, it became obvious that that was a humongous undertaking for anyone. And if we were to endure that sort of length, we would end up pushing the record back a little further than we wanted. So what we decided to do is break the story up into 4 parts. That way the first issue could come out with the record, and then the subsequent issues would come out in, a few months apart. So
Okay.
The first one is currently being produced, and it should be available when the record comes out. And then number 2, we just wrapped up coloring on number 2, and it's going to lettering, which should be a quick turnaround. So number 2 will actually be in production before the record comes out, and then hopefully we'll be able to get each issue out just a few months apart. But yeah, I wrote the story and then rewrote the story and took a few different cracks at it. Finally got it to the place where I wanted it. I've been rewriting it as they've been working, as the guys that we have working on it have been working on the first issue. I had to sort of make sure that I was working ahead of them so they didn't catch up with me. But we found an artist that we really love named Brent McKee. And it just so happened that he was coming to the end of a project and he had time, which was massive. That was one of the biggest hurdles, is that we talked to a lot of artists that were, that were really great and potentially perfect for this, but comic book artists tend to be booked out a year, 2 years.
Right.
So this Brent McKee had the time to do it. He was really receptive to it. His brother happened to be a big Demon Hunter fan, so that was a big plus. And I loved his style. He has a sort of it's between sort of an old school traditional style and sort of the newer look. But he does a really killer job, and we're really on the same page at this point with the look and feel of it, that he doesn't even send me sketches anymore. He just goes straight to inks. But early on, he was sketching the characters, and I had very few changes for him. He really sort of knew it based on my scene descriptions and my character descriptions and my world descriptions, which I went to great lengths to be really descriptive in those things. But he nailed it. And then we have a guy named Bill Crabtree coloring it, and Bill did coloring on Invincible and a bunch of other great comics. And then we have a guy named Patrick Brousseau doing the lettering, and he's worked on Hellboy and all kinds of stuff. So it's a really great team. And I'm just sort of, at this point, I'm just sort of sitting back and watching what they do. I don't have a ton of feedback because they all are very much like, they know what I'm looking for at this point.
Okay.
Initially, there was like, I think most of my notes were more to do with color. I wanted very flat colors. I'm not a big fan of lots of gradients and shines and Photoshop-y looking color. I like sort of flat, Mike Mignola, like hard, dark black shadows, not a lot of soft gradient shadows. Isolated color palettes. So that was the most direction I think I gave, was to do with the coloring. And once that was dialed, I haven't really had to speak to it. So
yeah, I mean, I saw it on your website. It looks, it looks really good. I'm not comic book. I used to read comic books when I was little, but not many.
Yeah.
I was in love with just one, Dylan Dog. I don't know if you heard Italian Dylan Dog. And in the record, you have Max Cavalera as a guest, right?
Yeah.
And in one of Soulfly record, at the back, it says Max gives thanks to God. Because I'm old school, so when I pick a record, I look at everything.
Yeah, totally. Me too.
I read everything. It's not big; it's small at the back. So I was wondering if with Max, you talk about these sort of things.
I haven't Funny enough, I haven't spoken directly to Max. I Our manager has been really close with his team for a long time, and so that was sort of our in with his camp. Obviously, we've been huge fans since we were young, um, and I'm sure we will at some point. I went and saw the Cavalera brothers recently play Beneath the Remains and Arise. It was awesome, but it was also still like COVID, was still kind of a topic and still remains to be. So they weren't really seeing any guests or anyone like that. So it didn't happen at that time. Um, but yeah, I've always known that there's been some of that with Max. I don't know exactly like what that means to him. I sincerely doubt it's looks the same as my Christian faith, but I feel like it became pretty clear around Roots era Sepultura, or that first Soulfly record, that there was, especially with the first Soulfly record, that there was some spirituality um, happening there, some like diving a little closer to the Western uh, side of spirituality. And I don't remember exactly what what was giving that away to me, but I remember it being more apparent, especially in that early Soulfly stuff.
And uh, last question about these sort of topics. And does the record have a Christian message?
Well, I think all of ours do, in that it's all through my worldview, my lens. There's not every song is like a biblical tale, or has like um, a stereotypically Christian moral to the story. Some of them are just more generally speaking about um, what our world is today and what direction it's headed in. But at the end of the day, my view is always going to be that that the Christian perspective, and like a life through the lens of Christ, is sort of the answer to all of the things that I find to be negative about modern culture. So even if it's not explicitly expressed, I think like that's the overarching sentiment. And each song sort of, has its own theme, has its own specific things that it's talking about. Silence the World, for instance, is just about the insanity of the internet and the comment culture, and just how we've basically given a voice to every person that wants one, and now we have to listen to all them speak over each other. And it's like giving handguns to like a bunch of monkeys. It's like, how are you supposed to deal with this?
Mhm.
Giving a voice to people who don't necessarily deserve a voice or shouldn't have a voice. I think that everyone deserves some kind of voice, but does everyone deserve a public voice? Does everyone deserve a voice that people should respect? That's the big question. So certain songs are about just those sort of things, social issues.
Mhm.
Um, Others are more introspective than that, but the lens that I'm always speaking through is that of a Christian worldview. So um, yeah, some are more direct than others. Like in past record songs like Jesus Wept, or Cross to Bear, like
Okay.
really angry, yet very spiritual, and very much talking about Jesus as a person, or the crucifixion or whatever. And then a lot of other songs are just about how that sort of where we're at now, how uh, stepping away from that, our culture has, where we've gone since the further we've gotten from viewing the world through that lens.
And right, I don't have any more questions in relation to the record. I mean, we could obviously talk more. There's one thing I want to ask you, since you're also an artist and a designer. Have you had the chance to check AI generated images or art? Have you had the like Mid Journey? And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I just basically scratched the surface of it recently, just as it's been sort of passed around. Um, since I'm not on social media personally, I miss a lot of things, or I'm late to a lot of things. Um, but I have enough, text conversations going on with friends that are connected that I see a lot of that stuff.
Mhm.
So yeah, I've seen a good amount of it. It's very, it's bizarre, obviously. It's shockingly cool looking, a lot of it. I guess it's sensible that that's where we would be heading. But it's another step to me, and like it's one of those aspects of modern culture that seems really cool, but if you really sort of trace it back to the root and what it has the potential to do, and what it will, the ripples that it will affect, I think that it's mostly negative. It's cool to see a computer spit out awesome imagery based on text, or whatever. That on the surface is really cool. But the fact that there's going to be, or there could be, very negative repercussions for artists.
Mhm.
I think that the negatives are going to far outweigh the positives. Like seeing a computer spit out a cool image is going to pale in comparison to the fact that, well, now I don't have to, I'm a corporation, or a movie studio, and I don't have to hire concept artists anymore. That sucks. And that's just scratching the surface. Also, people will be able to take credit for this art having really done nothing. Um, and some people might start selling art that they just spoke into a computer and making money from it. And to me, that's despicable. So, and again, we're just scratching the surface. I mean, that's just what, off the top of my head, the
Mhm.
negative aspects of it. So, um, I don't know. My outlook is going to, with anything technological, is going to be mostly negative. And of course, I say that as I'm speaking into a computer, with on Zoom. So I realize it's a push pull. It's a love hate thing. But the rapid, um, just how fast we're pushing into the future right now is pretty scary. I love the computer. I love technology to be able to do art, but as it sort of turns more into like a social dilemma, I get pretty bummed out.
Yeah, I mean, we are releasing a book. I'm releasing a book called "To Hell with AI" because I've been
I
following.
saw that.
There are a few artists which I follow that I like, and then I've noticed the stuff that they do, and just any random person does, and you can tell that there's an artist there that is guiding this. Uh, but I don't know if obviously other people see the same. Who knows? But the one thing which really surprised me is that considering what modern art is like, the stuff that the AI generates is very, very intricate and very detailed, and 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 almost like there's a beauty, whereas in modern art there is no beauty. Like, so I don't know if the developers made the AI to be that way or not.
Mm,
But but what I thought, if modern art is like this, ugly, very political, if there would be like an AI making art, it would follow the same kind of trends from the world. So,
yeah,
but it is not. A lot of it, like even if you just type something simple like house, like it's a beautiful house, very colorful, and it's not ugly. It's not. So
interesting. Yeah,
that took me by surprise, because if the AI follows the trends, the world architecture, and makes a house, then I would imagine some modern art crappy
yeah.
like nonsensical, but instead the AI generates some beautiful images. So that took me by surprise.
I wonder if that is because, I mean, it would make sense that whoever's teaching the AI,
Mhm.
or whatever is teaching it, or
Mhm.
however it's collecting data or information, it would make sense that it would be um, heavily weighted in like the masters of the Renaissance and those sorts of eras when things were beautiful and they were like,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
lighting was really exquisite and there was like a natural sort of just amazing, like just the skill level was over the top and everything was sort of, there was a purity to it, and it wasn't, there were no artists that were, we didn't see any art from people that were not great back
Yeah,
then. It
yeah,
was all great.
yes,
uh, so if we're feeding the AI that, it
Mhm.
would make sense that it wouldn't come out clip art. You know what I mean? That it wouldn't
Yeah,
come out like, now if you image search, like you said, if you image search house painting, it's going to be garbage,
yeah, yeah,
but if we're not feeding that stuff to the AI, which I would think in order to get good art out of the AI, you would have to abstain from giving it Google image search clip art to
yeah.
like filter through before it found some incredible, like, a lot of it to me looks a lot like concept art, like movie concept art,
Okay.
which I'm wondering if some of, if a lot of the data it's pulling from is of that variety. If it is pulling from modern things, I feel like it would be pulling from a lot of that concept art, some of the, like the environments, that we see like in the art of Star Wars or whatever it is,
Mhm.
types of books that have existed.
The Mid Journey already banned like strong words like horror, even body organs. I checked today. I was trying something,
Interesting.
and they banned even organs. They banned the word organs. They banned like like your typical metal words like killing and
Yeah.
so
Oh, that's interesting.
they're totally banned. But then again, if you write, let's say, like I wrote Lilith fighting Adam, but the image was horrific. The image
Oh,
generated. So even though I didn't put any strong words, the image that the AI generated was very strong. So it's really bizarre. It feels like AI is teaching the world about beauty and
mm,
the drama of myths and religion. So
interesting.
I just find it like I don't know what to make of it because even
Yeah.
even when you don't put things which are strong, like strong words, the image you get back is like whoa.
Well, that would make sense then, and if it is pulling from a lot of those traditional, masters, those masterworks, it would make more sense that it would come out more dramatic and more bold and uh, dynamic. Where I've never tried it. Is it as easy as going somewhere and typing something in?
Oh yeah, just to I do it on Discord. I do
Okay.
backslash and then image and then type anything you want.
Oh wow. Okay.
Is that easy? And then you get 4 images, and then you choose one of the 4, the one you like the best, to either keep or for the computer to regenerate and make more of it, like as a starting point. And then if you like whatever you like, then you can upscale it to make it a high resolution. Is,
Wow. And is
is
it
that
technically yours to use?
yes, I read the terms and conditions, and the artist that I'm
Wow.
working with, he got in touch with Mid Journey, but he is already like is an artist.
Yeah.
He works for the BBC, uh,
Okay.
so so this is one of a thing that he worked on. It did like 40,000. He generated like 40,000 images, and then
Wow.
it narrowed it down to what he liked, and then he used Photoshop to sort of touch on a few things, because not always everything looks right, especially if you
Yeah.
look at the detail.
Yeah, that would be, I mean, if I were to incorporate something like that, I could see myself taking it and then bringing it into Photoshop and continuing to manipulate it.
There's an artist from Spain called Necro, Nekro. He made a post on Facebook. I love what he does. It's like very fantasy, very intricate. And he did a post on what he did with AI, and then he sort of took everything apart, and then he put everything together in his own style, and it looks fantastic. Looks fantastic. So
Wow.
maybe it's a tool. Who knows? You know, I'm so curious about all this.
It's interesting. Yeah, I'll have to look more into it. I mean, again, like I said, my first instinct is to hate it, but you know, I can be swayed.
No,
We'll have to
but
see.
again, what is unbelievable, because you know the color is right. You know, like the light is right.
Yeah.
So either you know the developers know about this, so maybe they just fed the like color theory, light, the color balance, all of that.
Yeah, they had to have. Yeah. Yeah.
To make it, you know, to make the images appealing somehow. But then again, it goes in contrast to what the art trends in the world.
Yeah.
Because again, the art trends is just ugly, you know, just ugly, and for me at least is uninteresting. You know, like the banana stuck on the wall with duct tape. You know, like
yeah. Or even a lot of the NFT stuff just looks like it just looks so amateur, and I don't know. We're not really that sort of intricate, beautiful, like high skill level, you know, with a hint of realism. That kind of art is not necessarily like what people are clamoring after these days, you know.
But then again, if we look at like comic books or metal album covers, I think people love beauty and love a good painting, you know, like traditionally made, you know, with passion and a story to tell.
Yeah, yeah, I think people do as well. I think there's sort of like a fashion driven art that seems to permeate like popular culture, that is way more graphic and simplistic and sort of like an anti-design in a sense, and that it looks bad on purpose. And I see a lot of that happening. I follow fashion a lot, so I see a lot of that happening in fashion, and it starts there, and then it sort of ends up in a lot of other places, like the NFT world or whatever it is, which I've barely scratched the surface of. But from what I can tell, it has more to do with hype and trends and you know, streetwear culture and all of those types of things, more so than it does with like actual art world things. So yeah, I agree that people do still really respect and want high skill level, beautiful artwork. It's just sort of, it seems like it's being overshadowed these days by amateur, trendy junk, you know.
Ryan, we talked for over an hour. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, absolutely. It's always good.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise.
I don't have any more questions unless there's anything else you want to add. I don't want to take too much of your time.
No, I'm great. That was perfect for me. Yeah, keep me in the loop with how things are going with the book. If you need any more contacts, I can, even ones that I don't have, I can find for you. So let me know. And I let Bruce from Living Sacrifice know that when you reach out to him, to answer back, that you're a legitimate, you know, legitimate ask. So if you do reach out to him, I think he would be a great resource, not just for his interview, but for connecting to other people as well. So
okay, amazing. Thank you very much, Ryan. I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks. Likewise.
Bye-bye. Hey folks, thanks for watching this podcast. If you enjoyed this interview, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell your friend, your family, and your cat, and stay awesome. Don't forget to check out our store at www.headingmusicartwork.com. Ciao for now.